People X Participation. Change that adds up.
Hello and welcome back to the People X Participation podcast, where young people and professionals come together to talk honestly about engagement, rights, and what real youth partnership actually looks like. I'm your host, Em, and today we're exploring something a little different in a brand new partnership. We're joined by StreetGames, a charity creating accessible, community-led sport for young people across the UK. But we're not here to talk about sport in the usual way. Today, we're asking a big question. What happens when community sport becomes a space for youth power and a vehicle for agency? We'll hear from young people and practitioners about the moments when sport became a gateway to belonging, confidence, leadership, or even shaping decisions in their local areas. And with the local youth strategy published this year, we'll also look at how spaces like these can shape national plans for young people. So grab a cup of tea and let's introduce our guests. From StreetGames, we have...
I'm Lucy. I'm the lead for volunteering and youth voice at StreetGames, currently based in London, but oversee our work across Wales and England.
Amazing, thank you. And you've brought two of your young people with us today in the room. So starting with Mia, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Hello, I'm Mia and I'm from Birmingham, and I've been involved with StreetGames now for 3 years, and I've been working in sports since I was 13.
Incredible. And Eliza, how about you?
Hello, my name's Eliza, and I've been involved with StreetGames since, I think, 2022. And I've been in and around football. I'm in different areas of football for around the same time.
Incredible. Thank you, the three of you, for being here today. I'm hoping it's going to be a really fun and insightful discussion. So let's paint a picture and go all the way back to our roots. How did you first get involved with sport or community activities? And what did those spaces feel like when you first arrived?
So I've been involved in sport my whole life. I've always played. I used to swim to a very competitive level, injured myself, but then I took up netball when I was around 10 or 11, just going into high school. However, then lockdown hit and sort of sport was my sort of thing that made me, and it all got taken away from me. And I went through quite a lot of stuff mentally and suffered really bad with my mental health during this time. But sport was sort of the one thing that was still my personality. And through that, I sort of got into volunteering. I used to volunteer at my swimming lessons and my old swimming club when I was 13. Lockdown took that off me, but then when lockdown stopped, I wasn't allowed to get involved in sport due to mental health and an eating disorder, which I'm fully recovered now. And yeah, I sort of been coaching and volunteering ever since. I started volunteering at my old netball club, where then they offered me my first full-time job, coaching on evenings and afternoon with our junior participants. Through there, I got introduced to StreetGames, where I helped create a youth manifesto to take to the Labour Parliament, and I've obviously been on their youth panel as well. And through there, I then got involved with Sport for Life, been in charge of their half camps and delivering to a lot of female sport. And now I work for a charity partnership for a football club called the Albion Foundation. Through these, I've had the opportunity to work abroad. I've worked in the Galapagos Islands. I'm going to America next week to go and coach over there. And I now deliver a lot of our female-only programs there too.
My background is very different to Mia's. I grew up in an area in Cardiff called Grangetown with 4 sisters. So we weren't really encouraged to take part in physical activity because my mum had so many children. She could not. It was just too much to take us all to different sessions and things. So we kind of just used to play football in the park with my dad. It was never really something that we were encouraged to do both at home, but also just within the community. There's not really spaces for young Muslim women and girls when we were growing up. And then when I was, I want to say 16, I was at my local youth centre, community centre, and there was a guy there who was offering people to do the referee football course for free. So me and my sister said, yeah, why not? He was offering us to get paid to do refereeing, and we've always loved football, so we thought it was a win-win situation. And then we completed the course. Then we found out that we were the first Muslim girls in Wales to become football referees, which was very, very cool. And then from then, it's kind of just gone from there. I think when we first entered the space, we were both very, very shy. Sport has definitely helped grow our confidence. And we've kind of made this space our own in the sense that, sport is kind of what you make of it. So we've definitely had to learn that.
Thank you so much, the both of you, for sharing. And it's really interesting how you both, like you say, Eliza, have such different stories when it comes to sport. And now I'm going to turn to you, Lucy, because obviously your story is going to be completely different again. How did you get involved in this work?
Much like Mia and Elisa, I grew up taking part in sport from a very young age. It was like the thing I absolutely loved to do. I was, the only girl in the boys' football team at school. I played everything. I have probably to thank my older brother and my dad, but my brother, I probably was the little brother he never had. So the competitive streak in terms of competing with my brother forever in the garden and that kind of thing, I got the bug basically. And all through my childhood, and then I went and studied sports science at university, and from that kind of graduated and went straight into working with young people, and it's always been my key passion, and still is. Hence why I'm in my job that I am today. I've been working for StreetGames now for almost 10 years, and it is the perfect blend for me of mixing my love of working and developing young people and sport, and using the power of sport, I suppose, to change the lives of young people that we support and work with. Thank you so much, Lucy, for sharing. And I think it really goes to show the power of sport and the benefits of it and what it brings people, surpasses all the generations. And I'm going to hand back to you now because I want to see something. And it kind of links into our next question. We've kind of also dabbled on it a bit as well. But what do young people get out of these spaces? So from your experience when you were younger, what did you get out of these spaces? Yeah, I think for me, I really found my a sense of belonging, I suppose. I think the key thing for me was, it helped me with my identity, especially, I suppose, growing up and then now as an out proud gay woman. It really supported me in that space to be around others like myself. But I think, as we know, and hopefully the others will also share, I guess absolutely it's about belonging, but it's about enjoying yourself. But and something we talk about a lot at StreetGames, I suppose, is everything else that comes with it. So you mentioned confidence, but being a team player, leadership skills. They talk quite a lot about how I think a really high percentage of women are in high positions in the boardroom and that kind of thing have play sport or do play sport. So the impact can have lifelong change. And I think the other thing is that it gave me experiences that school didn't, I suppose, the opportunity to travel, having a completely different set of friends and that kind of thing that that helped support me through times, and also at university, I suppose, as well. So I could probably talk for hours about how great sport is. So I'll let Mia and Elisa do that job as well.
I completely agree with Lucy. I obviously can see it from two different sides. I can see it from being a participant myself, but also being a coach and working in this industry. The amount of young girls that I work with who I get to help shape their futures is amazing. But more importantly, these girls come to me with no confidence, no identity. I work in a very deprived area. So the girls that I get misbehave or come from single parent homes, come from really deprived families, where just putting fresh water and food on the table sometimes is a lot for families. So giving them a free space to explore, make friends, and have a purpose is not only rewarding, but you sort of get to be a part of their journey. And I think that's the most rewarding bit about working in sport. I always say sport is such a powerful tool. No matter your age, your gender, ethnicity, and who you are as a person, it helps shape you and it builds those vital soft skills and it gives you an experience. But as well as being a participant in sport has shaped me in so many ways. 10 years ago, I wouldn't even talk to people. Now I'm the most chattiest person going. And I can stand in front of rooms, and I've delivered at conferences, and I can now stand in front of a class of 30 and deliver my passion and my experiences to them. And I think that's the most rewarding bit about school and sport, is like you can sort of pass on your teachings and your mistakes to the next generation. And we at work, a lot of the things I do is to get kids off the streets. That's why I work a lot of our community programs and I do a lot of our community engagement delivery. It's because you're seeing the impact it makes. Those free sessions, yes, they're free, but they have more of an impact. They're not shaping kids' careers, no, but they're shaping their personality and they're shaping their character development, which sometimes is a lot more important than careers.
I think another thing for me personally is friends. Sport gives you such lifelong friends, and I've met some of my best friends through football and sports who I know I'll keep forever. And I think that's really, really important. A lot of people struggle in school to meet the right friends. And I think sport is such a great way to really meet your people. So I think that's definitely something I've gained from sport.
Thank you so, so much, all of you, for sharing. And it's really interesting hearing from you, because I'm kind of putting all these pieces together and it's like, technology changes between generations, trends change between generations. Almost everything seems to change, but it seems like sport is a constant. The benefits it gives you, how it brings people together, what it can teach the next generation. And I think, like you were saying, Mia, there's so, so much power in that. And I think that's something that we don't see and celebrate enough. So we've talked about the power of sport, what it has given all of you, regardless of your age and your background. It's all given you some incredible things. But what would your life look like if that didn't happen to you, if you didn't have these spaces and if sport wasn't such a core part of your life?
I think for me, aside from all the friends that sport has given me and the amazing opportunities, it's also given me a career. Sport is something that I know I want to work in the future. And had I never put myself out there and been involved in it, I would never have even known there's such amazing jobs available aside from your typical like sport coach and players. There's a whole world out there that I feel, well, me personally, I was never aware of. So I think that's something that's really important, is that you can, I don't want to say monetize off it, but there is a whole career you can gain, literally just like Lucy, within sport, which is so amazing.
I completely agree with Elisa. Working in sport has not only gave me a career, I'm now studying at a university. I'm studying sports coaching and development because I know when I first got into sport, all I thought there was, I'm going to be a PE teacher. It's given me other options and other doors. I had sport taken off me for 2 years when I was really poorly. And I was at the lowest because I had no way to sort of be myself. Sport was my personality and it was the only thing that I had that was mine. That's why I feel like it's so important to have these spaces for people, and it's why Street Game is amazing in the work that they do, and other sports organisations is they provide these spaces for young people to grow and develop.
And Lucy, what are your thoughts on this? You know, from what you've seen with other young people, are you also seeing the same in others? Are there any other things that you'd like to add?
I think one of the key things that we see is that and this links quite nicely to the youth strategy is around that trusted adult, that role model. You know, people talk about really important teachers in their lives that have made that transition, or that, you know, have supported young people in a really positive sense. And I think the same, like, that's what I suppose sports coaches can do, and that's probably what Elisa and Mia are doing. You know, I have no doubt that Elisa is inspiring the next generation of, you know, female Muslim referees. You know, you need people like Mia and Elisa to be breaking down those barriers to open up opportunities.
So you mentioned about the National Youth Strategy, which segues us on perfectly. So I'll start with you, Lucy, as you were the one that mentioned it, and then we'll see how our young people feel about it. What does the National Youth Strategy mean for sport and spaces like this? And what does it also mean for young people within those spaces?
Yeah, I mean, it feels like it's a really important moment in time. There hasn't been a youth strategy for at least 15 years, I think. And so there's been quite a lot of austerity, and youth services have been cut left, right and centre. And there hasn't been, I guess, a huge amount of direction to support the young people of today. And maybe that sort of, you know, that long-term impact is now being seen. I know we've had a pandemic, which probably exacerbated the problems as well. But yeah, it feels like a real opportunity. I think it's a time to feel optimistic. The key thing really is like what comes next. the biggest opportunity for us as an organisation at Street Games is the recognition and hopefully the support of the roles that community partners and these community organisations can play. This is the time for them to be recognised in that policy space, and hopefully it's a chance for the strategy to sort of legitimise those spaces as part of the youth sector, not sort of pushing them over to sports provision. I think 80% of sports coaches work with young people, so effectively they're doing brilliant youth work just with a different hat on.
I think it's great now that there's been some sort of realisation that there was a problem, there wasn't enough spaces, there wasn't enough opportunities. We're now doing something about it. And I think that's a massive step forward. Growth takes time. And I feel like we're now taking those small but big steps in a sense. Yes, it's taking time, but that realisation was the first big step and that first leap forward to these opportunities and the change coming about. Change is a good thing and change needs to happen. If things stood still, no one would grow.
Eliza, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's just really nice to see that it's something that can hopefully create more opportunities for young people. And it's nice to see that sport is being taken seriously and being given the recognition that it deserves, especially within young people's lives.
Thank you so much, the three of you. And do we have any worries at all?
Is it still going to be the same in 10 years? Are we going to get this growth? Or are we just going to stay stationary? Is it going to be another thing that's been put out there but nothing gets done about it as urgent as we need it to be? And none of us know what's going to happen in 10 years' time, but is it going to be, yes, we've got new spaces, we've got new opportunities, the youth strategy is working and it's in place successfully? Or is it going to be another thing that's just been put out there and it's just to tick a box? And we don't want that, but sometimes that can happen and other things can come up and it gets prioritised over something that needs working on. Sometimes youth can just sort of be thrown away, pushed to the side quite a lot, when realistically, in this day and age now with media, technology and the generational change, it needs to be centred and you need that centred approach to get this change about.
My fear, I suppose, is that it becomes a tick box exercise. Like, we have to hear from young people. Okay, who are the young people? Let's find 3, 4, 5. Okay, they're the ones that always respond to the same things. And actually, it's only a real select group of young people that get heard and are able to shape or influence and decide whether something's going well or not. All well and good to have all these like nice shiny things, but if the young people that need it most aren't accessing it, then ultimately it's not doing its job.
Just reiterating on Lucy's last point, I've worked NCS as a team leader and agreeing with Lucy that funding going into that is helped massively with their growth. I've been lucky enough to go and work abroad and have that funding and the resources to be able to do that and have the accessibility to go on residentials as a kid. But some of the people I worked with on NCS, that's the first time they've been away from home. And taking away funding like that, I feel like that is a major worry. If we're taking funding away from that, what else are we going to take funding away from?
You have such a good point. You know, what is going to be taken away next? But I think going back to Lucy earlier, we have that hope of what else is coming. I would like us to look at things a bit more holistically now. So we're talking a lot about tick boxes and tokenism and really making sure that we include young people properly, that it's not just, yeah, we've got your insights, we're moving on. So why do you think it is important for decision makers to involve young people like the strategy has? Why is that co-production and shared ownership so key?
I'm going to say something that was said to me this year. I was on a training course this year. I'm not going to go into too much detail and stuff due to confidentiality. However, I was told we don't normally accept women on this course. However, we need to tick a box. That's what someone had said to me. There was only 4 females, including me, on this course. Same as I'm a student working in sport on a contract. When people see that label as student, they treat you as a student, not as a already full sort of contracted member of staff. So I feel like I've had to work so much harder than other members of staff to prove myself. And that's because I wasn't given a chance. Give young people a chance. That if you actually take the time to listen to them, yes, a lot of what they say you do sort of have to break down. But if you actually get deep and listen to them personally, some of their ideas are great. And I learned a lot of that from the Youth Manifesto. Yes, we was a big bunch of personalities, as Lucy will know. We was quite a big group of personalities. But once we sat down and we spoke maturely and got into breaking down these ideas of problems and youth problems within youth and organisations, you sort of see them as a young adult. Let's stop treating them by their age. Let's start seeing them as a young adult. Let's see what they have to say, because if you actually take the time and listen, a lot of their ideas are meaningful. And it makes you think, like, oh, they're right. And then it's up to us then as the adults, what can we do to change that?
Yeah, I think just echoing what Mia said, I think it's so important, especially in these boardrooms, because some of the decisions that are being made inevitably going to affect the young people. It's a bit like politics if you think about it. We have these politicians making decisions for us that are going to affect us 5-10 years down the line. It's the same with sport in these boardrooms, etc. So I think it's so important to have that youth voice.
The impact is, I would say, sometimes immeasurable for giving those opportunities to young people in spaces that they sometimes never thought they were ever going to have. We have worked with young people that shape our work for as long as we've existed. Our young advisor model means that, all of our residentials, all our youth conferences, loads of work that we do that has an impact on young people, puts young people front and centre. They're running it, they're making the decisions, they're obviously supported by us, but there's nothing, they do a much better job than we would, because they understand the lives of their peers. I didn't grow up in a digital world in quite the same way, and I can't speak for the experience. I still can't. I can't keep it up. The way that they see the world is so different, and therefore we absolutely need to be platforming them and listening to them and acting on it as well. I think the key thing really is about where we can influence and they can absolutely shape work, and being comfortable with the uncomfortable as well sometimes, understanding that we have to accept that they're right. They know what's going on in their lives. Amazing. Thank you so much. We are almost coming to the end of our time now. And before we do, does anyone have any last comments or anything that they'd like to share to anyone listening, perhaps any other practitioners, young people, or maybe even decision makers?
I think I'd just say that I definitely recommend to any young person who's thinking about participating in sport, or is kind of scared about it, or worries that it's inaccessible. I think it's just really important to remember that sport, I think, in my opinion anyway, is one of the most accessible things ever. And it is truly as life-changing as we've all kind of said or spoke about on this podcast. So I think I definitely encourage any young person that's thinking about taking part or kind of worried to definitely try out any sport.
Thank you so much to all of our guests for joining today, and for StreetGames for partnering with us on this podcast. It truly has been such an insightful conversation, and really shows that community sport and these spaces, it's not just about the game. It's about the relationships, trust, identity, and the real opportunities for young people to lead. And that these spaces, they're more than just a moment. They are a foundation, creating a legacy for true influence and change. If you've enjoyed listening to this episode, let us know and make sure you follow and share. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.